Good morning.
Good morning, Miss Escribano.
How are you? It's
I'm
good to see
good.
you.
Good to see you. Glad you're here.
Yeah, same. I've been very I've been sick, so it's good to finally get back to a normal schedule.
Oh, yes, I
It's
hope.
not, I'm all good now. I'm still gonna be another couple of weeks before I feel 100% better. I finally got COVID after 3 years of not getting it, and it hit me hard.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I thought I was gonna be the lucky one. Nope, 3 years later, it got me. But I'm just glad I'm vaccinated. It could have been a lot worse, that's for sure.
Mhm.
I hope everyone here is staying safe and healthy as well.
I think we are. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. We can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay.
Christina, can you post the agenda whenever you get a chance?
Sure. Okay. Let's check on other board members. Mr. Walker's joining. We do have 3 board members on the call, so I think we can begin to honor the time as it's being live streamed.
Okay, let's get started. So good morning, everyone. My name is Philip Bergard, Chairman of the Board of Ed. For today, I'll actually be chairing the Finance Committee meeting. I believe information in the agenda was sent out previously. We have a number of items on today's agenda. And I guess we can start with our first item, which is contract is continuation approval for autumn transportation. Chief Penn, I'm not sure who on your team is handling that, but if you could provide us with some details and backgrounds of this contract that we have in front of us for roughly, I believe, $25 million.
Yeah, I see Bill Mason's on the call today, and I'm going to let him sort of start that off and kind of give you the background, as this is a final extension of the contract that was negotiated 4 years ago.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Bill Mason, Transportation Manager. So I'll go through the presentation that we put together for the contract. As Phil said, our contract was started 4 years ago. It handles all of our transportation for door-to-door transportation, for special ed, and regular to and from school buses for big bus, and it has a clause in it for field trips and athletics with a preferred rate for our schools to use. So we're currently in the first extension. The contract had a 3-year contract with 2 possibilities of 1-year extensions, and we're in the end of the first year extension, and we'll be moving on to hopefully the second year extension. I have the notes here and like to talk a little bit about why we're looking to extend the contract for one last time before we go out for an RFP later in the year in November, December. Any questions so far? Okay, so Autumn Transportation, as I said, handles all of our transportation for in Hartford students. So it's the students that live in Hartford and go to school in Hartford for big bus, and then they handle all of our special ed transportation. We transport over 9,500 students to 230 schools throughout Connecticut. As I said, we have a preferred rate for field trips and athletics, and most of the schools are using that rate now, as it's been difficult to get buses from other transportation companies and to be able to get any kind of competitive pricing. Extending a contract for the last extension year will come with some enhancements. So we're going to have a new parent app for the fall. It's going to be an app that's similar to if you order from Uber Eats, or you're using Uber to go somewhere, where you can actually see the car coming down the street to your house. We're going to have the same thing for where the bus is coming to the bus stop and to door-to-door students' homes. We're also going to be adding a digital on-time bus reporting. So that the bus reporting it'll hold for 30-day running totals of when buses arrive to bus stops and arrive to schools. So we'll be able to actually get some real metrics and real-time metrics that we weren't able to do before. And we're also going to be testing with them. We're going to test with our out-of-town buses a digital dispatch system. So when a person comes into the yard to drive the bus, we've had some issues over the years where so many people come in at one time and they're going to so many different places for out-of-town busing that they're not exactly always aware of who came in and who didn't. So this will be digital, and it'll show when they punch in with their time card that they came in, they're supposed to leave at 3:00 in the afternoon to go pick up kids. It'll start moving them up a chart that'll show from like 2:45, they'll move red that they're late and that they're not there yet. They haven't checked in because their bus is supposed to leave at 3:00. We'll be able to see it. The bus company will see it, and we'll be able to know if there's a driver that hasn't gone out and see it real time. So Autumn has partnered with us as a district some too, where they've done some things like kind of pro bono. They sponsored different events. They did a backpack giveaway at the Yard Goat Stadium last year for back to school. They sponsor the Teacher of the Year dinner. And they've done different things for us where they try to, stay as a good partner. They give us shuttles for a convocation, student buses to the championship game when SMSA was in the championship at Mohegan Sun. They transport our students to Capital Community College from Hartford High for a nursing shuttle during middays that we do right now occasionally throughout the year. And then they also transport the students into the Superintendent's Advisory Council for us without charging us, as some examples. And during the 2023 school year, a lot of districts still had the same issue with transportation problems from COVID and not having enough drivers. The driver shortage in Connecticut is still around about 1,000 CDL bus drivers. We haven't had the problem that other districts have had. We haven't been in the news. We haven't had a day where we couldn't run buses, where we had to cancel trips, or we had to cancel school. Many districts such as Hamden, Wallingford, Greenwich, Mansfield, Durham, Middletown, Montville, Newtown, North Haven, they've all been in the news, and they've all had problems with keeping up with enough buses. It has not happened under this contract. Part of the reason why is our CDL drivers for the big bus and CDL drivers for the little yellow buses are interchangeable. And then we have our van drivers that drive most of our out-of-town transit vans. So during COVID, we discussed together, Autumn Transportation and I, about how we could, minimize any effect that COVID was going to have on to and from school. So what they were able to do is get more van drivers on the small bus side to do door-to-door transportation that could be moved in to take over for little bus CDL drivers that would be moved to big bus CDLs if we were short drivers. So this is how we've been able to maintain back and forth to school every day without any interruption. It's worked out really well. I've had other districts call to find out how we've done it. And, even last year, when we first got back to school in 2021, we had the different news agencies all calling, and it's back when John Fergus still worked here, and they were all asking, like, how are you guys doing? You guys are doing bad. How many bus shortages? How many days didn't you go? And we'd have to tell them every time, we didn't have this problem, and it's not a news story because we've been able to stay out of the news here and keep this under control. If we go to the next slide, Christina.
You guys freeze?
Thank you. So the other part that I wanted to talk about was like some of the technology advancements that we've made with Autumn Transportation. So 4 years ago, when we received the contract, we didn't have cameras and GPS and audio on all of our buses. So with the new contract, we put in that we wanted to have it on every bus. So now all our buses, all our new buses, everything that goes out on the road has full video, audio, and GPS tracking. So we have 285 buses on the road and vans, and every one of them is able to be seen wherever they are. And then we have video chips that we can download and get videos from for schools if there's issues on the bus, issues with the driver, and we can keep up with any discipline that needs to happen. And as I said, we're going to be adding some new technology for this year. We've had a parent app before. We stopped using it for the last 2 years during COVID because when you're interchanging buses, you have to switch that all the time. And as most bus companies that started using parent apps had to put them on hold as well, because if you have to change and say, okay, now it's this bus, that bus, and during COVID and times when there weren't many drivers and switching buses all the time, it was difficult to do. So the new app would really make an advancement for the parents. We had 3,600 parents signed up for the bus app we had previously. So it really does help, and it's very useful for them. And I'm sure even more will like it once they find out how well this one works. The on-time tracking, I know last year when we talked about the first year extension, we talked about having a program that would track metrics. So I had them go out and work on getting a program that would do that. And that's what this program will do. It'll be able to give us, on-time metrics every day. And then lastly, the dispatch log is one that I used to use in the trucking industry, and it was really helpful to know always when your drivers were coming in on electronically instead of paper. Here in our department in transportation, we don't use paper. Everything that we do is completely digital, and it keeps us so that everything's always in front of you all the time. So we don't have any paper. In fact, we don't even print anything. So the more we can get that way, even with the bus drivers and the busing, the more everybody can see things at one time and share things. So just to recap a little bit, our history shows that Autumn will continue to provide uninterrupted bus service and maintain staffing levels. I mean, they've been able to prove that and do that. Autumn has been able to maintain the proper number of vehicles for this contract, even though there's a severe bus production shortage. So the shortage is still going on with that. There's a whole issue with the chassis being made, and bus orders are out 5 to 6 months right now. The new on-time digital bus reporting, and we'll keep track of daily arrivals. Like I said, the improved parent app is going to be a real good feature for our families, and the digital dispatching will really help out with us knowing where our drivers are at one time. So as we go into this year, if we go through with the second year of the extension, our RFP is going to have to come out probably late November, early December, so that whatever company we would have, if it's not Autumn, whoever it is that we go through with the RFP, they're going to have a lot of technology added to what their buses would have. And they'd also have to have 285 buses and 504 drivers and monitors. There's 297 drivers on this contract right now. So it's very difficult for places to have that many lined up. So we got to get out ahead of it really early in the winter. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Mason. I have some questions, but I'm looking towards my colleagues to see if they have any questions. Looks like Shantae has her hand raised. Ms. Brody?
Thank you and good morning. I am wondering about if we could be realistic about the times of the bus. Like if we've did a whole school year and you still have stops as if the bus is not leaving the school 15 minutes late. So if we could be realistic about the bus times. And I don't know how we could, I know you, Bill, you've helped me tremendously on items that I've brought to you. I commend you for that, Ms. Santiago, too. I've had quite a few. My concern is not the availability of the buses, which we appreciate that we don't have to deal with other districts, what they deal with, but I'm worried about the quality in the decision-making of the drivers. So I don't know how we could, I don't know if we track how many complaints. I don't know if we track how Autumn deals with the complaints, but I have some issues with some of the decision-making of some of these drivers. And after a complaint is brought, they do the exact same thing. So I'm worried more so about that piece and how we assuring that there's rules that that's one of the reasons why we vote for them. Not just because you have the best price, but because we're trusting that you have really good drivers. So on that note, I don't know how that's captured and how that's dealt with or tracked, but it is a concern of mine. Thank you.
Okay, so one concern that came up, as I said last year, was the tracking and the metrics, and now we're going to have a program that's going to show us that. So this program will show the time it arrives to each stop, the time it arrives to the schools, the time it leaves the schools, and we'll be able to see that on a rolling 30-day basis and be able to tell. Under our contract with dealing with drivers, if drivers have continued problems, we have in this contract that we can remove drivers for any reason. So from working under the Hartford contract, it's up to Autumn whether or not they terminate their employees because they're contractors and they don't work for us. But we recommend when we have problems that drivers be eliminated for any reason, including yesterday, there was a driver that was taken off of a run. So we use that card when we need to, and we remove people. Having the basic time, like a school, say it's a third tier school, a bus may get there 10 minutes late, but the school doesn't know what happened down the road 2 schools before that. They might have been late dismissing the students. There might have been a problem with a parent at a stop. There's different reasons that a bus gets late as it goes through its tiers, and we'll be able to track that more with the new tracking metrics.
Thank you. And do you, Mr. Chair? Yeah, it is a tier 3, and it's like it's not realistic. You're not leaving forever. You're not leaving when you say so. If that's the case, and we know we cannot make that time just for parents and people who fill in for parents, let's be realistic. Like, this is the time. This is the new time. We adjusted the time, and this is your drop-off time. I think that is more so helpful. The tier 3, no problem with the morning, but the afternoon, we just have to have a real time that they're actually going to be there.
Yeah, we'll definitely be able to. We'll definitely be able to see that as we move forward, because it'll come out through this report, and we'll be able to make those adjustments. This will help us every day with that.
Okay. So I think what we're talking about here should definitely be captured in the RFP moving forward. This is more operational. But I think those are some good points that our my colleague Ms. Brody brought up. Are there any other questions regarding, I see Mr. Walker's hand as it relates to this contract for the extension with Autumn. Mr. Walker?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. My question, I'm just going to own this, not about this particular contract, but because really this is an extension. honestly. So the question I have, I guess, for Chief Penn is the financial question of the next contract. My concern is the reason that we're extending is because something different or dramatic is going to happen in next contract. So I guess Chief Penn, is it going to be steady as she goes? Are we going to get this great service for around the same price? I mean, could you or Bill answer that?
No, I don't have a crystal ball that's going to be able to predict an outcome of an RFP this far out.
He said November. So I'm just saying, so let's handicap it. I'm just saying, so Bill, I'm just saying, because November is only around the corner. It's not like it's years away.
So Mr. Walker, for example, Greenwich went out for a new contract last year. They got 2 bids for big bus, and their big bus rates that they got in their bids was $546 per day for a big bus and $599 for big bus. We're currently at $431 for big bus. The rates are a lot higher everywhere. Everyone that's been going out, it's been staggering to see. Hopefully diesel prices and stuff start to come back down, and some of the escalated costs on buses. They put like surcharges on buses. As soon as they started having the shortage, busing companies started charging like another 15 to 20 grand per bus. So hopefully some of these things come back down as COVID goes down, and everybody gets away from the pandemic part of this, and like the work and everything comes back, that some of the rates come more reasonable. But right now the rates are not reasonable.
No, thank you, Bill. And so Chief Penn, I think what I'd like to see in the upcoming year then is best case, worst case, most likely. That's what Bill says, why I'm expecting a significant price increase unless the genies or something kind of make everything get back in the bottle. So, okay, but at least I get an idea of what the future may look like. Thanks, that's all that I have about really this bus issue.
Okay. Chief Cooch, I thought I saw your hand raised. Do you still have a comment?
No, I was just going to share. The RFP process will also probably bring back autumn, right? So we have to go out just because the contract is up. So we will just be soliciting bids from anyone who decides to jump into the pool. And so I'm sure Autumn will jump in, knowing that they are the company that has provided us with the best rates.
Yeah, and Mr. Mason, you touched on this a little bit, but can you just talk about why this is a contract extension and not going out to bid? I mean, you mentioned it before, but I think having that clarity will be helpful.
Yep. So right now, to extend, just because we already have the drivers and we have the contract and the buses, we thought that it was still the best time to do that, because after last year started a school year with all the crisis that everybody went through in other towns with shortages of drivers, and especially ones that had new contracts, we think that there still could be an issue this fall. I mean, there's still big shortages in the state. The state's started a program where they're helping people get trained to be bus drivers, and hopefully those students that are going through this training will be through the training before the end of the summer, and more drivers will be in the pool, and people will be able to keep up with drivers and start off the year correctly. But the start of the year last year in Connecticut was a complete disaster. It wasn't here, but it was a complete disaster. And that's what I fear. So going with what we have now, and knowing what we already have and has been successful is better than going to the unknown that hasn't been so successful right now. And that's including the larger companies even that are having the same types of issues keeping up with drivers at the beginning of the year. And I mean, this stuff, it was even still happening after Christmas time. Like North Haven had a problem where they had to shut down right after the holidays. Newtown continued to have a problem after the holidays. It came into this year. Resco back in November was down 81 drivers for open choice.
Yeah, no, that's super helpful, and thank you for that. And just again, for public consumption, what we're doing here is a contract extension for the academic year 23-24. And then in between that time, sometime in November, there'll be a bid sent out for a contract for RFP for bus transportation for academic year 24-25, or starting 24-25. Just want to make sure that my understanding is correct of
That is
how
correct.
the next steps are. Okay. I have a couple of questions, not necessarily need to be addressed here, but I think it would be helpful to have some of this information before the board meeting. One is, and I should know this, the 25 million, what does that represent within our budget percentage wise? You mentioned breakdowns between regular transportation, special ed, and so forth. I think having line of sight of how that's broken down, both from a dollar amount as well as percentage. For me personally, I want to know, like, out of the 25 million, how much is going towards special ed, how much is going towards out of district, and so forth. Those are kind of my two questions, but or two statements that I think would be helpful to have before the board meeting. Seeing no other questions, Ms. Escobar, I'm not sure if you had anything you want to ask.
No additional questions. Thank you.
Okay. It sounds like we're comfortable moving this forward to the board meeting. It sounds like, again, to Ms. Brody's point, there's operational items that we need to address, and I think we should certainly make note of that in the RFP process. And then again, I think there's just kind of 2 or 3 takeaways in terms of cost breakdown as it relates to the overall budget, and then more importantly, categorizing the 25 million. It sounds like we're okay to move this forward. Thank you, Mr. Mason, for your time.
Yep, thank you.
Next item is 1.02, which is the contract continuation approval for Power School. Chief Penn, I'm not sure if that's yourself or who's, oh no, I have, well, is it Power School?
Apologies, it is Power School. My
Okay.
slide deck, and Dr. Silver's on the call for this.
Okay, Dr. Silver, the floor is yours.
Thank you, sir, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to our Power School contract. We can go to the next page. So the objective of Power School, it is our student information system, and it provides educational solutions to support the school district in meeting core operational needs. It also allows us to fulfill federal and state reporting obligations and helps us to monitor performance and progress of our students. So it is a web-based subscription. We did transition to cloud hosting a couple years ago. And we receive technical support and professional learning for users for the student information system. And there's a list of items here, and you'll see more detail. The contract amount is $518,158.58. And the term is from July 1st until June 30th, July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2024. So our department, the departments it serves includes the Office of Performance and Accountability, as well as academics and operations. And Power School systems allow the district and schools to fulfill operational requirements and monitor measures for all strategic priorities. And it does allow us the ability to collect, analyze, and report student outcomes that impact all of our goals and our performance metrics. So some more information about Power School. As the leading provider of cloud-based software in K-12 education, Power School connects students, teachers, and administrators and families with the shared goal of improving student outcomes. And their mission is to power the education ecosystem with unified technology, so coherent technology that works together, so that students can realize and fulfill their potential. So it is a widely adopted student information system across Connecticut as well. And we do have web-based subscriptions for professional learning and technical support that include support for our cloud hosting for our student information system, Power Teacher Pro Gradebook, which all of our teachers use to record grades and attendance, enrollment and registration, which our Office of Operations uses, Performance Matters, which is our online, it's one online testing tool, and it also compiles all the data from our existing testing tools that we use. We also, have our special programs for MTSS, which is our multi-tiered systems of supports, and that program has been rolled out and is in operation. And it also has Naviance, which is a college career readiness tool for us. Okay, next slide, please. So Power School is the sole source from which HPS may purchase the Power School software and the support we need, including updates and enhancements. Through an RFP, Power School was selected in 2009. as the preferred vendor for managing student information. And this RFP process did take about 8 months to complete in 2009 and had stakeholders from all parts of the district. Hartford Public Schools has invested the development of the software version in place today. So we've really grown in our ability to use the tool and also to customize it to our needs. We have on-site PowerSchool certified on-site PowerSchool certified developer who sustains and supports the software to meet the specific needs for Hartford Public Schools. And especially with the pandemic, we had additional customizations. And so it was very helpful to have a certified developer in-house to support this work. PowerSchool contracts with the majority of Connecticut districts and partners with the Connecticut State Department of Education to further develop the tool and support districts in submitting state reporting. We are very satisfied with PowerSchool services, and we wish to continue the contract. And here's an overview of the different tools that we do subscribe to in the PowerSchool suite. Under licensed products, the restricted and personal, non-exclusive, non-transferable license to use. Number one is the PowerSchool Student Information System with cloud hosting. And you can see the item is listed on the left and the pricing is listed on the right. So $187,000 of this contract, $188,000 goes towards PowerSchool Student Information Maintenance and Support, which includes the hosting, the SSL certificate, the testing, and the Gradebook Pro, as well as, and so those are the tools, and those are the licensed products. We also have support services for licensed products that include telephone and email support, access to online support, website fixes and new versions, and then professional services, which include training, user documentation, resources, installation, and consulting and project management. So the biggest part of, one of the big parts of this contract is the student information system, but we also have the student information system distance learning professional development, which is learning for our staff on how to access and use different features of the tool. We also have the Performance Matters Assessment Analytics Choice, which is the testing platform, and the PowerSchool Assessment Bank. We have the Naviance AchieveWorks, which is the college and career tracking, the alumni tracker, the career key, the different assessments that students take for exploring their career interests and understanding what their natural talents are and how those talents inform potential choices for their future in terms of career areas that they might be interested in. We also have the College and Career Readiness Curriculum, Naviance eDocs, which supports applying to colleges and universities, facilitates that. We have Naviance for middle school, which supports our grades 6, 7, and 8 students, as well as Naviance for high school, which is our 9 through 12 tool, Naviance Insights Premium, and Naviance Remote Consulting. We also have the PowerSchool enrollment registration for our Office of Enrollment, and that is also supported with Spanish language support, and PowerSchool Enrollment School Locator, as well as PowerSchool Special Programs, RTI, which is RTI stands for Response to Intervention, and that is our MTSS tool. So I want to pause here and ask if there are any questions so far. I know I've covered up quite a bit.
Dr. Looks like I'm sorry, Dr. Silver, it's probably best that you continue and then we take questions later.
Okay.
So, Mr. Walker, if you could just hold your question, please.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so assessment and progress monitoring. So we evaluate the success of this tool by the ability of the schools and the district staff to use PowerSchool systems to conduct our core business. So we are highly satisfied with our ability to use and customize the system for district needs. And PowerSchool customer relations has been responsive and supportive to questions and needs. The vendor's ability to implement and sustain solutions that meet expectations as outlined by our contract and its amendment. So PowerSchool continues to develop and enhance its products based on the changing needs of education, and they are responsive to our needs. The vendor's ability to provide consistent and reliable access to systems during operational hours, including peak hours. This is a very big need of ours, and we are satisfied with PowerSchool's uptime and communication if and when an outage does occur. The vendor's ability to diagnose, escalate, and resolve support requests within reasonable timeframes in alignment with typical business standards. So we are satisfied with their ability to resolve any challenges that we have come up against. And we have had increased product use and satisfaction by staff, parents, and students. And again, as I mentioned, the pandemic showed us ways that we could customize the system even more. And now that we're moving out of the pandemic, we still have that learning and some of those applications that we continue to use. Parents and students are licensed to use the PowerSchool portal for monitoring attendance and grades on a daily basis, and those resources are available to our families and students. So here we are with questions.
I was on mute. Sorry. Board Member Walker, I know you had a question.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Dr. Silver, my question is really more, it's more for my education. I'm not having an objection with PowerSchool. I'm just want to know, given the size of this contract, does your team, or are you obligated to do some kind of comparison? So do you ever, like, what is PowerSchool compared to? I mean, does your team ever evaluate other tools that are out there, and are they graded in comparison with PowerSchool? Like, how does the process take place that you guys to decide we'll keep PowerSchool versus something else?
Thank you for that question, Mr. Walker. And there are a few factors that influence our decision to go out for an RFP. The first is our satisfaction with the company's responsiveness and their ability to meet our operating requirements, our core business. And so they do that very well. Another investment that we've made is we have considerable training that has been a big part of the investment for not only central office staff who need to ensure that PowerSchool is up and running, but all of our teachers and administrators and their ability to access the tool and complete their core job functions relative to their responsibilities for recording grades for students, attendance, discipline, and ensuring that we have contact information for all of our students in place so that we can communicate easily and effectively with our families, as well as notify them if there is an issue. So we have those considerations about staff training and what the cost might be if we were to transition to a different tool. We also consider the regional capacity. There are times when people are invited to different roles in different school districts, and our ability to hire someone who has PowerSchool experience. If there's widespread adoption in the region of a tool, we're able to better have a larger pool of applicants and qualified professionals in our region that would qualify for different roles that would come up. So that capacity is really important to us. And we also have community user groups that support and sustain and build our momentum to engage the product. So if a school district nearby is using PowerSchool in a different way, because there are community forums, we have the opportunity to learn from those other school districts as well. And we've also, I know one of our in-house person, Rich Linwall, who is extremely skilled in PowerSchool, has been invited to present at conferences nationally because of the innovation that Hartford has engaged with our PowerSchool products. So there are considerations in addition to the cost. And when we did go for RFP, a competitive product was, there were a number of different competitive products. Some of them did have adoption, larger market shares in other parts of the country. And this was the not only being the most financially strategic choice for us, it also allowed us to build customizations into the system. So it was the most competitive, and those other competitive products and other products have emerged. And we do take into consideration and monitor emerging student information systems, and do track the benefits of those systems, as well as how PowerSchool might be customized further to give us those additional benefits and still maintain the low cost that we have for the student information system.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I feel confident you're doing an excellent job of tracking and monitoring this tool relative to your environment. So thank you very much.
Wanted to see if are there other questions from my colleagues? Ms. Brody.
A clarifying question. When we say it's a so the superintendent cannot enter a contract more than a year. So what if we said, it's saying continuation, what if we just said, no, we don't want to continue? Is the contract for a year or for more than a year, and we're just coming here to continue it?
So, Ms. Brody, I think that's probably a question for our attorney. And I think that is a good question. I would tell you, at the end of the day, if the board, whether it's a contract or a contract continuation, we could vote yea or nay on it. And if it's a nay, then I believe we go back to the drawing board.
Okay. And maybe, I don't know, could it be addressed at the board meeting? Because my fear is if something happened between the start and this continuation approval, and we haven't prepared ourselves with another vendor or something of that effect, I'm just wondering, how does that actually look for us?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. And I think just going back to transportation team, probably did a good job in terms of laying the glide path, right? So contract continuation, and then, hey, we got to go out to bid in November and so forth. So I think that's probably a best practice that we should look into. But I do think that's a good question, more of a governance question that we could certainly pose to our attorney. Ms. Santiago, can you just make a note of that regarding board member Brody's question as it relates to the logistics of contract continuations and implications if we were to terminate them prematurely or not approve them?
Yes, we'll do.
Dr. Silver, in relation, again, not necessarily needing to be answered now, but I do think, and I think this goes for all of our vendors, particularly ones with contract continuations, just having line of sight of who the other vendors are, right? Like kind of the benchmark. So it's one thing to say, hey, contract continuation with PowerSchools, but I think it would be helpful to say, at least for board members to have an idea of potentially some other vendors and maybe just some basic data of where they're landing in terms of costs, if you're able to get that. But again, I think that's something that we should do as a best practice for all these contract continuation or just contracts in general. Okay, thank you for your time, Dr. Silver. Seeing no further questions, I know we have one takeaway that was brought to light from board member Brody. We'll go to our next agenda item, which is 1.03 contract continuation approval for Qualtrics.
And that is actually Dr. Silver again.
Okay, Dr. Silver, you're back up.
Thank you, sir. And yes, Qualtrics. So our objectives with the Qualtrics contract is to effectively, efficiently, and accurately collect and interactively report stakeholder perception and experience data. So Qualtrics meets the immediate need of the district to survey stakeholder perceptions with high levels of data integrity and rapid reporting for both qualitative and quantitative or sentiment items. The deliverables include licenses, technical support, and professional learning for Qualtrics customer experience. And the customer experience is the tool that we use to survey our, for example, with our climate and culture surveys, where we survey staff, students, and families. And it's also the tool that we use for our employee experience surveys and data collection and monitoring for that. And those include surveys related to intent to leave and employee satisfaction. Our contract amount is $110,980, and the term is July 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2024. And this tool serves the offices of performance, academics, talent, and schools. So the contract for the customer experience aligns with skillful staff. The tool supports new staff onboarding and transitional staff exit surveys, and also provides interactive dashboards depicting employee satisfaction. So that's the employee experience portion of the tool. And then the Qualtrics effective operations alignment is for $52,080. That is collecting data reported and linked to our learning walkthroughs, our climate perceptions, and our program registrations, for example, summer programs or winter session or intersession programs. So Qualtrics is a technology tool. It's designed to optimize the collection and reporting of stakeholder perception and experience data. The tool is flexible, permitting HPS to expand its application from stakeholder feedback surveys regarding our strategic plan and remote learning intentions for our students and families, to climate and our climate surveys that we administer now twice a year, to additional areas, as I noted earlier, such as registration for various school programs. Summer program registration has, I think, just wrapped up, and importantly, employee engagement. So Qualtrics tools are embedded within district priorities, including academics, culture and climate, family and community engagement, and operations. And we are very satisfied with the Qualtrics services, and we wish to continue the contract. We are how we monitor, assess, and progress. So success is evaluated by the ability of Qualtrics to collect and display walkthrough data. And Dr. Negron has done an amazing job of designing a very comprehensive walkthrough system with questions and observations that are being collected. And we have about 6,000 walkthrough data points that have been collected in this system, and we're able to collect this data and then customize the display so that it speaks to the strategic design of the walkthroughs and aligns to the outputs, the dashboards, beautifully with the information, the summary information that's needed. So Qualtrics customer support has also been responsive and effective in addressing questions that have come up with this need. And that's just one example. The vendor's ability to sustain solutions that meet or exceed expectations as outlined by the contract. So Qualtrics tools continue to evolve, they continue to grow, and they are enhancing their tools as time passes. Things that we didn't know we needed, but boy, this is really helpful. So it's very, very helpful tool, and reporting features are excellent. We have fantastic confidence in the integrity of the data that's in Qualtrics. The vendor's ability to provide consistent and reliable access to the system has also been very, very good. We're highly satisfied with Qualtrics uptime and the vendor's ability to diagnose, escalate, and resolve support requests within reasonable timeframes in alignment with typical business standards. They are very responsive and get back to us within a couple hours whenever we have a question or a need that we need their support resolving. So the next slide. Oh, and that concludes the overview of this contract.
Thank you, Dr. Silver. Looking to my colleagues to see if they have any questions or comments as it relates to this contract continuation. Again, Dr. Silver, I just echo my previous statement, and I think it echoes Mr. Walker's previous statement as well. Just as we're looking at these contract situations, again, just having a view of the current market, I think would be helpful just going forward.
Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no hands raised, I think it sounds like we're okay with bring this forward to the board for a vote. Let's move to the next agenda item, which is 1.04, acceptance of funds for the dental clinics.
Yes, and we have Dr. Doug McAlpin on the call to help explain this item.
Hi,
Mr. McLaughlin?
thank you. Basically, just give you, this is a very positive one. It's receiving money, not spending money. Always a positive thing. The state has willing to give us $100,000 for next year to expand our fluoride sealing clinic at 2 additional schools. We've had it for the last 3 years. We were given one and we expanded it at a number of the other schools. It was at Burr and BSTEM, Kennelly, and Naylor. Those schools do not have a fixed dental clinic. And the same thing is our suggestion this year is we added to Global and Fisher. Those schools were picked primarily because of need as well as space requirement to do it. The money is there to cover both supplies and equipment, as well as part of the hygienist salary. The hygienist, when they perform their service, but the ceiling, it is a billable service, and you do get money back on that. And it honestly can be sometimes on the plus side, as far as no expense, but rather a income maker. And that's all I have.
Thank you. And before I turn over to my colleagues to see if they have any questions, I guess Chief Penn, I just want to make sure, just again for public consumption, acceptance of this of these funds has no impact to the general budget. Is that correct?
That is
That is
correct.
correct.
Okay. Looking towards my colleagues to see if they have any questions as it relates to this item, which is the acceptance of funds for dental clinic. I do have another question, and maybe let's give time for my colleagues to raise their hands. So you mentioned kind of the algorithm that was used to pick the 2 schools for expansion. I guess, are there if we were to get another opportunity like this, do we have other schools in the pipeline that can benefit from this, that also meets like the needs and space and so forth?
Well, yeah, I think every school could use it. I think that it's a matter of a space requirement too. They're all based out of the nurse's suite, and you need to have that so that equipment can be placed there and gone to. And so it's some of the nurses' suites are extremely small and probably would not be viable. You'd have to make some other significant changes to physical site.
Yeah. So my question is, so again, the algorithm is need and space. My question is, do you have another tier of, like, if we were able to get more funding, do you have other schools lined up that meets clearly need, but also space?
I don't have a detailed answer to that question.
Okay, that's fair. Mr. Walker.
Hang on. Yeah, thank you. Mr. McGilpin, my question is more about coordination. We recently we're looking at policies that would have a kind of medical coordinator or for the district, or someone who kind of coordinates medical activities. So would this kind of service kind of fall under someone like a medical coordinator or director for the district. I'm asking the question because I too can't figure out at times like which schools it picked and why and what's the criteria. So I'm just curious that these kind of decisions are at least coordinated under someone who's looking at a district level.
And I forgot to mention, I'm sorry, our Director of Health Services, Deb Comides, is out at schools doing evaluations that could not be postponed as we're coming up against the end of the school year. So I know she does have a plan, and I'm going to have her get back to you to Chairman Rigger's question, but also Doug, Dr. Gilpin, if you have anything other to add, please.
No, we try and look at the whole picture and see, take everything into account when we make these decisions.
Okay, thank you for that response, and yours as well, Christina.
Want to see if there are any other questions or comments from my colleagues. Ms. Brody, Ms. Escobar. Okay, seeing none, I think it appears that we're okay with moving this forward to a board. Again, this will be acceptance of funds for a dental clinic that will have no impact to the general budget. All right, moving to the next item, agenda item, which is item 1.05, items reviewed in committee.
Yes, so as is our practice, we still bring items that have been discussed and reviewed in committees just to review the finances or any other additional questions. So these special education contracts were reviewed in the Teaching and Learning Committee, as well as this bottom one, ESS under the Office of Talent Management was also reviewed and discussed in the Teaching and Learning Committee, but we do have Ms. Jan Hoffman, Director of Special Education, and Dr. Curtis on the call if there are any questions.
Yep, Board Member Walker, looks like you have your hand raised.
Yeah, thank you. My question is about ESS and the kind of shape here. I looked at the previous meeting, and I guess I'm concerned that we're going to spend money on ESS as a recruiter, essentially a parallel HR department to recruit substitute teachers and to recruit paras, when it looks like we have a retention problem in the district. And so my question to Dr. Curtis, Chief Curtis, is why do more recruitment when it appears our main problem is keeping paras and substitutes and teachers?
Thank you, Board Member Walker, for that question. So I think two things can be true at the same time: the need to recruit and the need to retain. So I think you're correct. Retention is very important. Retention, though, lives out across the entire district. So there's, the Office of Talent Management works with all departments and all schools to try to lift best practices in general that support retention. However, while we have openings, we have to figure out our best strategies for recruitment because we have to fill vacancies. So although OTM may not have direct insight or oversight in how to retain teachers in schools, because we're not right there in every school, but once there is an opening, we have a due diligence to try to figure out how to staff that position. So two things have to be true for us. We have to continue to figure out how to support the district in retention of professionals across the district while we also recruit for all of our open positions. This organization that we're looking at has a high success rate of sourcing talent in the context of where the school district is. So what we're looking for is a partnership that can go out into our community and fill our vacancies of pairs and substitutes with people that are in and around the greater Hartford area.
Dr. Curtis, I get your commitment to recruitment. I am saying that I expect you, your office, to champion retention as well. In this case, we're going to pay a price premium. We're talking about finances. We're paying a price premium to ESS to hire substitutes. I looked at what was presented. Their key selling point to me is when they hire substitute teachers, they treat substitute teachers like they are a member of the team. Essentially, they hire substitute teachers and they get paid weekly. They get 401k access. They get health benefit access while working for ESS. When Hartford Public Schools hire substitute teachers, they don't get 401k. They don't get healthcare access until some point down the road. All right, your staff, Ms. Javier, reported you hired 169 substitute teachers from 2021, 2022. You didn't have a problem with recruitment. What you had was a $250 bonus if they stayed more than 30 days. You had an under 20% fill rate there. So in essence, you couldn't keep people. And so I'm saying here, ESS gives them health benefits. We don't give them health benefits. So first thing, I think it's going to undermine your own ability to recruit substitute teachers because they get a better situation with ESS. I saw a note about CBA. What I can tell you is that I don't know any union in the sun, I don't know any union that won't go for a better arrangement. And so what I'm saying is, once they come to you and they don't get health benefits anymore, are they still going to stay? Chief Curtis, are they still going to stay when the district situation is not as good as ESS?
So our arrangement with ESS is specifically to help us source talent for individuals to become employees of Hartford Public School. So they understand that when we're entering into this agreement with them, that it is for the sole purpose of us to convert this source talent into HPS employees. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the continuum of substitutes is very great. So you could have retired folks who are coming back in who don't want to teach every day, or you could have retired folks who just clearly just want to kind of make their own schedule. You could have college students, like the continuum of subs is great, right? So not all substitutes want to be employed at the rate that we would want to have them in HPS. So that's something that we're working on. So what we're trying to get is a more dense candidate pool, like way more people to choose from, because although we hired that number of subs, we still didn't have enough subs to fill all of our open vacancies. So it's really important. And I get what you're saying about what we offer substitutes, but like what was in the chat, a lot of this is governed by the collective bargaining agreement and has to be negotiated for. So that's something that we can't do anything about in discussions outside of negotiations. But given the contract that we do have, and given the vacancies that we do have, and having a goal of starting the school year with an adult in every single classroom, this is one of the strategies we have for filling vacancies before the start of the school year.
Dr. Curtis, I do have a question or comment as it relates to Mr. Walker's statement. And you alluded to this a little bit, but I think it'll be helpful if we're able as a board to get a line of sight of kind of, is there a particular target with ESS as it relates to the transition from their employee to a Hartford employee? One, right? Is there a target? And then two, how are we bumping up against that target? So I think that would be helpful as it relates to, again, to Mr. Walker's point around retention, but more important, what I would say, conversion. right? In this case, where it sounds like ESS is, let's call it the first phase, then to what level are they actually converting their substitute teachers into our network? I think that would be helpful to understand.
So we do have that outlined on slide 9 of the deck that we submitted, where we have a goal of no less than 80%. So we are saying that we have an aggressive goal for a conversion rate of source talent, particularly with pairs as well. So after 3 months, after 90 days with ESS, our goal is to convert every single person into an HPS employee, and then work on the continuum of substitute needs around if there is a challenge with converting substitutes because of wherever they are in their preference for working, how we can meet those needs as an HPS employee.
So the target is 80%. How are we tracking towards that target, I guess, is my question.
Right. So we have in here how we'll track the metrics as well. So essentially, ESS has told us after 90 days, we can hire. We only have to pay the surcharge of 31% for 90 days. So we'll track all of the employees when they start, once they're at 90 days, and how we are able to convert them. So we'll have those numbers because we'll just onboard them as HPS employees.
Thank you. Board Member Walker? You have your hands raised?
Okay. Mr. Chair, I want to be clear that the conversion rate that you're looking at is, I think the conversion rate is not the issue here. What I'm saying is ESS recruits, they create a better work environment. So they bring substitute teachers into a better work environment than they would in Hartford Public Schools. No question that Dr. Curtis will be able to pull those people along. They're in the schools already. They'll just be changing that badge from ESS to HPS. I don't have any problem that they'll do that. Now, a year down the road, will that substitute teacher still be in the employ of Hartford Public Schools? I'm saying that if we like what ESS does, I'm only putting out on the table that we need to really be serious about retention. We should be serious to say, we HPS should be able to do as much as ESS is doing for a newly hired substitute teacher. Work with the unions if we have to. Work with them if we have to. But if we are serious about it, because this is going to be a persistent problem, I anticipate that what will happen is our retention will not be good. Next year, we'll come up and we'll talk about what a great job ESS did, and that we will then hire ESS again because they are good at recruitment. If we're not going to be able to keep them, if we don't have a better way, better benefits for substitute teachers, we're just not going to keep them. We all sit at the school board. We've all heard Michael Downs. We've heard other substitute teachers. I'm just putting on the table, at some point, we've got to call out retention, and let's be serious about it, because there's no need to keep hearing ESS as great recruiters if we're not going to be committed to just keep them.
Board Member Walker, I agree. I don't think you can ask anyone on my team. I am I'm screaming from the rooftops about retention, right? So I appreciate these comments. I do want to direct your attention to slide 9 of our deck, because what we did as a strategy for being able to retain these people, these professionals, is we only identified 10 schools. So we're not recruiting through ESS and sending them into the broader district, right? We're only looking to place them at 10 schools the first year so that we can have better insight into their experience and how they are being supported. And you talked about their work environment, right? Which we think is important also, which is why we only picked 10 schools, because we believe that OTM can have more of an impact on their experience as a new employee if they're not just all over the district, right? So that's why our strategy is only limited to 10 schools for that for the purposes that you're talking about around retention.
So I just want to make a comment, and Mr. Walker, I appreciate that, but from my perspective, one, there needs to be an acknowledgement that retention is an issue nationwide. And two, as fiduciary, it's our fiduciary responsibility to make sure that we put the district in the best light financially. So I say that to say, while ESS is, they have more leeway than us as a board, there's a balance between budget, reality, and what we can actually deliver on. So not saying that retention is not key, but I just want to make sure as we're making these comments that there are going to be certain trade-offs that have to be made because we are constrained from a budget perspective.
Mr. Chair, I respect everything you're saying. I am saying we are paying a price premium to ESS to create this better environment. All that I'm saying is if we're willing to.
I'm not disagreeing with
Okay.
that. All I'm saying is just like, there are trade-offs.
Okay.
Like, and we, as a board, we have to be comfortable with that. So if we're saying, hey, we want to triple down on the retention and be better than what ESS is providing, fine, that's okay. But there's something's going to be impacted. Something else is going to be impacted, and we just have to be comfortable with that.
Oh, okay. I agree. I agree with you. And all that I'm saying is we're already paying. So we're already making trade-offs. Right now, what I didn't say is that when I first got on the board, we had already been in a multi-year contract with Dr. Curtis's office. Her office had a capacity building and consulting situation where they got better technology, more staff. We then brought in Adams and Knight, who's helped them with better recruiting. I'm saying we have already made investments into recruiting capacity with Dr. Curtis's office and at the district level. Now we're going to double down and pay yet another specialty firm to help us with recruitment. And so I'm saying that we're already making costs. And at some point, we also need to go ahead and just own that if we want to keep people, we also have to make a cost. That's all. That the cost can't just be on the recruitment end. There is a cost to actually keep people. And let's just own it, see what it is, and make that trade-off. Because everyone who works in business knows there's a cost to continually recruit people versus keeping them. It's got to be cheaper to keep them than to continually recruit them.
Well, so I agree 100%. I would just say it's, from my perspective, it's not an or, it's an and. We need to bring in talent and we need to retain talent, right? So for me, it's definitely the two, but your point is duly noted. Are there other items as it relates to items to be reviewed that anyone wants to call out? Okay, seeing no hand raised, we could go to the next agenda item, updates and reports. Item 2.01, year-to-date 22-23 financials through April. Chief Penn, I believe you'll walk us through that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Back to me again. Yes. In stark contrast to last month, where I gave you a very large number of updates related to the financials, the last 30 days have been relatively quiet. As you'll see, our spending patterns are about what I would expect them to be at this time of year as we drive into year-end closeout, with our actual paid expenses increasing and our encumbrances decreasing as we're paying bills against open purchase orders. We've seen a little more deterioration in our special ed tuition costs to the tune of about $400,000. I'm not willing to put that into the deficit estimate for year end just yet, mostly because we're still looking at POs that I think can be closed out, where we'll have some savings come back into the general fund. Meaning, as an example, if a PO was for $5,000 and we only spent $4,000, when we close out that PO, $1,000 comes back into the general fund budget. And right now, there's well over 2,000 POs that are open right now that we're working very aggressively to close out over the remainder of this month. Second thing we're keeping a very close eye on is fringe benefit costs. And as you know, we're a self-insured healthcare plan. During the month of June, we tend to see a fair amount of seasonality in the healthcare plan usage, which kind of makes sense if you think about it as a practical matter. With deductibles that reset on July 1st, if you've already met your deductible for the year, you may very well try to cram in as much healthcare activity on your standard stuff that you would do for annual physicals and things of that nature, trying to get all that work put down before the deductible resets on July 1st. So June tends to be a high claim month for us, and we're monitoring those claims now weekly as they come in from Anthem, just to make sure we're tracking to about what we thought we expected and not too far off from where we were for the prior fiscal year as well. But that's kind of the two things that we're keeping an active eye on. And so long story short, we're continuing to project a deficit of between 2 and 2.5 million, which continues to suggest we are going to need to access the non-lapsing account, that 5.6 million that was set aside 2 years ago. The other thing I would point out, just in terms of the ESSER spending, and I don't typically comment on this every month, but Dr. Torres Rodriguez got some interesting anecdotal feedback from Christina. If you could scroll down to that memo, that would be great. Had gotten some pretty interesting anecdotal feedback about how district-wide schools, right there, thank you, how other districts, sort of statewide, have been spending down their ESSER. And one of the things that came out of that was that the statewide average is only around 35% of ESSER funds have been spent down by school districts. Frankly, I was kind of surprised by that. I thought other districts would be further along, particularly the ones that didn't receive a lot of money. So right now we're at just over 50% through the end of April. I can tell you that we're closer to 54% as we sit here today, first week of June. With a very clear plan on how the remainder of the money is going to be spent through the end of the 23-24 fiscal year. So we remain on track for making sure that these funds get spent. But I did want to throw out that data point around where the statewide average was, because that was some fairly interesting feedback that we had gotten at a state level. And with that, as I said, it would be short, but I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Chief Penn. Looking to my colleagues to see if they have any questions as it relates to the most recent financial update provided by Chief Penn. Okay. Chief Penn, I don't see any hands raised on screen here. I take that as everyone's okay with the update that you provided. I know Ms. Brody, I believe in the chat you have mentioned that you'll provide some additional questions to Ms. Santiago prior to our board meeting. So thank you for that. And again, I think today was a very it was a good conversation. There were a couple of takeaways as it relates to some items that I think will be helpful for other board members to have line of sight as we have this discussion in 2 weeks or so, in a couple of weeks, or next week, actually. Oh, no, 2 weeks. Hearing anything, I guess I will call this meeting to adjourn, and everyone have a great day.